Welcome back, everybody. Friday, February 10th. John Aravosis here, live from Washington, D.C., to talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get rolling on TikTok on my iPad. And while we're waiting for the TikTokers to arrive, introduce yourselves. Say where you're from, if you would. And I will hang a minute for you guys all to join in. Oh, boy. La, la, la. Friday, Friday, Friday. Very exciting. Copies. Good to see you. Ah. Oh, that's that's interesting, Susan. I don't know anything more about it either. I'm going to talk about it at the beginning of the show, but I don't know. Susan's asking about the fighter, the possible balloon that got shot down today. UFOs. I know. Hang on, I'm just writing myself in it. One sec. And anyway, just waiting a minute for folks to join in on TikTok and YouTube. So that's why we haven't started yet. It is a nice sunset today. Yeah, we just finishing now. It was a nice sunset. Pretty nice. Oh, hello, Estonia. Always lovely to see the Baltics represented. Alberta, Australia. That's nice too. I feel sometimes like the timing doesn't work for Australia. Thank you, Dave, for the hat for us doing. Although no, I think we asked you guys before. It's like 10 a.m. there or something, right? So it should be good timing. Oh, all right, guys. I might as well get rolling here. Welcome. This is the Aravosis Report. I am John Aravosis, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. What was I going to tell you? Oh, Benji, look at you. Whoa, wave. Benji just gave us a whale. Thank you, Benji. And thank you, Biofuel. I was just going to say that the gifts have already started on TikTok. One of the things that you guys can do to help my work is providing gifts on TikTok, providing gifts on Super Chat questions, super stickers on YouTube. I do this for free. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. This is my full-time job covering Ukraine. And basically, I get paid by you guys. Nobody else pays me to do this but you. So I appreciate all your help. So thank you for that. Thank you, Pauline and Alan, for the gifts on TikTok. So tomorrow morning for the TikTokers, I am doing a coffee talk, as I call it, 10 a.m. Eastern time, US. I get together every Saturday morning for about half hour or so with the folks who are the subscribers on TikTok, the paid subscribers. Just another way to pay my bills. And thank you, Dave, for that. And just another way to sort of thank the folks who are helping me out. So thank you that. Dave and Zoe, everybody's it's a gifty Friday, I can tell. Thank you guys. So that's tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on TikTok for the paid subscribers on TikTok. So let's start talking about the Alaska shoot down thing. So you may have heard, if you didn't, lots of news today. You may have heard the U.S. government has shot down something over Alaska today. It was at 40,000 feet. Now, 40,000 feet is an important distance because it is the same distance that airplanes fly at. Airplanes tend to fly between like 30 and 40,000 feet. So this thing today, it was the size of a car, not the size of 3 buses, which was the balloon shot down previously, the Chinese balloon. This thing, and we still don't know what it is. I suspect our government knows what it is. Was shot down. It was flying just north of Alaska, so over a really dead area. I mean, Alaska. I've been to Alaska a lot, actually. I used to work for the senator from Alaska, and Alaska is a very, I don't want to say rural state. There just aren't a lot of people there. It's like 500,000, 750,000 people, but it's a state that stretches almost the entire distance of the United States. I mean, it's a huge state. So there weren't a lot of people up there, but I mean, there's natives and things like that. But what there is a lot of up there are nuclear submarines and things like that. So it still could have been spying, could have been aliens. Exactly. Nerd is saying it. Nerd with personality saying aliens. But all we know, and all the government was willing to tell us today, thank you, Johnny, for the gift, is something was flying at 40,000 feet over Alaska, over northern Alaska. It wasn't very big. It was the size of a car, and we shot it down. Now, there's 2 things going on here. Thank you, Sally, for the gift. I think there was UFO. I know. I kept saying, how do we know we didn't just kill ET? Right? Apparently, we did send up. Thank you, Bonnie, for the flowers there, and Sally for the hat and mustache. We did send F-22s went and shot it down. The F-22s, the fighter jets, did fly around the object to make sure it wasn't manned, to make sure they didn't see anybody inside. So there you go. What do you do? Oh, thank you, AJ. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What was I going to say? So two things, I guess. One, just observations on this, and then we'll jump to Ukraine. One, political pressure played a role here, of course, right? Biden got a lot of criticism for those first 5 days or however long it was that the Chinese balloon flew over the US and he didn't shoot it down. This happening just a few days later, clearly there was pressure to shoot it down. Secondly, I suspect we know what it was. I don't think we would just shoot something down that we didn't know what it was, because frankly, I would have ET concerns as well. Suddenly it's a very small chance, but let's not start an intergalactic war because we're just shooting things down that we have no idea what they are. I'm being half joking here. You don't shoot things down when you don't know what they are. I think we know what it was. And I think it probably was a balloon. The question is, was it private? Was it Chinese? What was it? We're going to find out. Basically, the last little point to tell you is, it was shot down just north of the Alaskan coast, still American airspace, American waters, everything else. And because Alaska is so cold, it's the middle of winter there, the water is frozen. So it landed on frozen water, which, would break things up, but it means it wouldn't sink. So that makes it easier to recover it. Although, thank you, Al, for the gift. It potentially damages the material more. There was a whole trade-off going on with the other balloon, just to tell you really quick. I promise you we're getting to Ukraine next, but I knew people would want to know about this possible balloon the U.S. government shot down today over Alaska. That balloon, the previous one we shot down, was interesting because we shot it down over water. So hitting the water, in principle, wouldn't be as bad as hitting the ground. Although I remember growing up and we were always told, like, coming full force down on water was still pretty bad, right? you land on water and it's not like it's water, like it's a dive, right? Nonetheless, the water ends up possibly corroding the instruments, whereas land does not, but the land can smash it. Anyway, there you go. That's all we know. Government is accessing it right now, and hopefully in a couple of days they'll tell us what this thing was. Now to the Ukraine news. Thank you, Eli and Boat. Was it Eli? ETM. Sorry, ETM Sanders and Boat Drinks for the gifts. Ukrainian Air Force is claiming today, and this is kind of an interesting story because the Romanians are disagreeing. The Ukrainian Air Force is claiming that 2 Russian missiles launched at Ukraine today flew over Moldova, which the Moldovans say did happen, in fact, and then went and landed in, Romania. Now, Ukraine, okay, Moldova, more or less over here. Romania, I'm getting this more or less correct. Romania, more or less over here. So they're saying that my guess is they were probably, they could have been Russian missiles from up here coming down and overshooting, or they could have been Russian missiles here going this way and veering to the left. I don't know which they were, because there were also missiles shot from Russian boats down here. The Romanians are saying, no, the missiles got close to Romania, but they didn't enter Romanian airspace. The Ukrainians are still sticking to their story and saying the missiles entered Romania, which is, a NATO country. So I'm not sure what's going on here. Important enough to mention because a NATO country, is Romania. So obviously, Russian missiles entering a NATO country, big possible for problems there. There's some interesting news on the fighting front today, which actually starts being a little negative for Ukraine, but then ends up being very positive and really bad for Russia. So sip of water and let me tell you about this. So the British Ministry of Defense has a cool Twitter account. It's their intelligence folks. And they do sort of a daily update on what's going on in Ukraine. And today they updated and said, in the last 3 days, Russian forces have likely made tactical gains in 2 key sectors, 2 key areas where the Russians appear to have made some progress in the last 3 days. One was near, thank you, Matt, for the gift. One is near Bakhmut. Now, Bakhmut is right up here. You'll recall that Bakhmut is the town that everyone's been talking about for the last few weeks. Major fighting, probably, I would say the biggest fighting of the war is taking place around, not of the war. The biggest fighting right now is taking place around here. So the Russians have made some gains around Bakhmut, not a ton, but some. And the other is around a town called Vuhledar. Now, Vuhledar is down here. Here's Donetsk, basically a little bit to the west southwest. I'm gonna, I mean, I looked on the map. I'm gonna guess around here where my finger is. Okay, both of these are the Russian front with the Ukrainians. Just to remind you, Russia basically controls everything this way and this way of my finger. So this coming down here, it then cuts over here, cuts right to the edge of the river. The Ukrainians control north of the river, over here, and then down here. So all of this is basically controlled by Russia going up. So the one big battle is here and the other big battle is here. Both of these are on the front between, when I say the front, I mean where Russian troops and Ukrainian troops meet each other, okay? Now, what's interesting is the British Ministry of Defense says, okay, two important points. One, the Russians did make some advances in the last 3 days. Thank you, Louis, for that. Near Bakhmut, a little bit further north, and Vuhledar in the south. Okay, but this isn't just the British Ministry of Defense. This was a big story today that a lot of the military folks in the West were discussing on Twitter and everywhere else. Listen to this. Russia suffered heavy casualties around Vuhledar. Vuhledar was the town in the south, a little bit further south I was telling you about. And it's being portrayed as a disaster by Russian military bloggers. Now, the Russian military bloggers, it may sound kind of funny, like what's a military blogger, but they're actually pretty influential people. Putin, early on, and this is just my surmising of what was going on with sort of my foreign policy background, but Putin, I think, saw everything the Ukrainians were doing and how effective the Ukrainians were online. And thank you, Bonnie, for the star. Yeah, because the Ukrainians were doing major, and they've been doing like major political organizing, marketing, selling their message, selling their country online, right? And Zelensky being out there, everything's been just very 21st century marketing, right? Putin thought he was going to be cool and decided he would embed or have nearby a bunch of bloggers, basically Russians going on social media and writing about the war, but who had firsthand knowledge of the war because they could talk to the military and everything, right? A lot of these guys are former military, not all of them, and they have been publicly writing on Russian social media, so things like Telegram, places like that where the Russians tend to use a lot, and writing, either doing videos or writing several paragraphs each post, several paragraphs about how the war is going. Well, the war hasn't been going great for Russia, as we all know. And these military bloggers have been just savaging the Russian government and the Russian military over how things are going, especially there have been a lot of bad battles, right? But especially that one in the east. Remember several months ago, the Russians were trying to cross, they were setting up pontoon bridges, and the Ukrainians blew up the bridge. When these Russian troops were in the middle of the bridge, the Russians lost like dozens of tanks. Possibly several 400 to 500 troops. It was crazy, this victory. The military bloggers were livid. Anyway, these military bloggers, very influential. Putin stupidly let them gain influence. Some of these guys have over 1 million followers on Telegram, and Russia's a country of like 153 million people. So having 1 million followers is a lot. I will tell you this, in America, a country of 330 million people, having 1 million followers on social media is really good. That's really powerful. In a place like Russia with half our population, even better. So anyway, get back to what happened here. So the Russians made some progress in Vuhledar and then screwed it all up. Let me read you a little more here. Basically, they sent a lot of inexperienced units there, so a lot of their newer people that aren't as well trained, and they made some advances, and then the Ukrainians destroyed them, and things were so bad that the Russian troops ran. They fled because they were, and frankly, not stupidly, because these guys haven't been trained. They don't have the right weapons. So the Russian troops are sending with no experience. The Ukrainians blow them up. The Russians freak out, abandon their vehicles, and run. The Russians lost at least 30 mostly intact armored vehicles in a single incident. So they basically had a single attack they were doing. It went so badly, the troops freaked out, they ran, and they abandoned 30 armored vehicles. Sky News was calling them tanks. Now, my suspicion is, because other news was calling them armored vehicles, they're probably some of those vehicles that some people think are tanks, but the military people say, no, they're not. They could be armored personnel carriers, but basically the kind of vehicles that have a turret like a tank, but if you look at it next to a tank, it's clearly a lot smaller. Nonetheless, these are really good vehicles. Thank you, Stephen, for that. That was very generous of you. I appreciate that. Disaster. Well, don't take it from me. The military bloggers are freaking out over this. They're so pissed off, which is great news. Let me read you a little more of this. Per Sky News is reporting on this. Gray Zone, which is a semi-official Telegram channel of the Wagner mercenary group, right? The Wagner group are those soldiers for hire that used to be in good with Putin and now are kind of on the outs with Putin. So fun intrigue there. Their semi-official Telegram channel, they said in a post that, quote, a disaster is unfolding around Vuhledar, and it is unfolding again and again, meaning not only are we screwing up, but it keeps like happening, which means they must have more and more troops that are just fleeing the scene, blaming what it called a crisis in troop command. Another blogger said, these people destroyed a considerable amount of personnel and equipment without being held accountable for it, and then, with the same mediocrity, began storming Vuhledar. So basically, thank you, Bonnie, for that. What's basically happening is the military bloggers are watching this and saying, what is wrong with you people? In other words, the same people that these military bloggers have been attacking for months, saying the Russian military leadership, you're doing it again. Now, Samuel Romani, the last guy I'm going to quote here, a politics tutor at the University of Oxford. I follow him on Twitter, actually. He's a really interesting, again, political commentator about, foreign policy commentator about all this stuff. He said, the developments today signaled a, quote, return to chaos for Russian forces following recent changes in military leadership. What is important about that is, what he means is, there was that big shakeup a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. And remember how Putin basically didn't fire, but he demoted the guy in charge of the war in Ukraine. And this was like the 5th general or something at this point. He keeps firing him. Fires this guy, demotes him. General Surovkin was his name. And he puts in Gerasimov, who's the general who also happens to be the top-ranked Russian general in the Russian military. Their equivalent of what we would call the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Gerasimov, he's put in charge, and basically the same, somebody just said lather, rinse, repeat. That's exactly it. The same problem they've had in the past, they're having again. Now, again, none of us should think that, Ukraine's got this, right? That, it's going to be a cakewalk, no more deaths, etc. What is good to see with this, and clearly the Russian military bloggers recognize it and are saying it, is that and again, I think all of us had said this, just because Putin has a lot more troops, that's going to help, right? I mean, it helps him to have more men and new men to throw at Ukraine, but the same old problems exist. They're not well trained. Their training, but their training sucks. They're not getting the training, and when they do, their training sucks. They don't work well with the other troops around them. They don't have sufficient vehicles and other equipment, and basically, and their logistics sucks. In other words, food and water, ammunition, fuel for their vehicles, terrible. The Russians are terrible at this. It's happening again. I mean, this is great. Let's see, but I think it's an important story because, again, it shows that maybe this is a precursor to these attacks we're expecting, possibly in as early as the next 10 days, and possibly as late as maybe April, the sort of spring offensive by the Russians, and whether they can really pull anything off, or whether, they're now the final point I'll make about this, all the experts are saying there still is going to be a lot of death and carnage. I mean, it is going to be very bad. Whatever the Russians do in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months. Thank you, Victoria and A-Wing. Even if they don't succeed, they're going to kill a lot of Ukrainians, and a lot of Russians are going to die too. So it's not good. But if you're Ukrainian, the Russians are going to attack anyway. You'd rather have the Russians basically lose their attack, which is what's happening. I do stream on Twitch as well. My Twitch account is the same as my thank you for the hat there, Paramarine. It's the same as my same as my TikTok account, Aravosis. Thank you for the gift there, William. Let me tell you about the Discord. My Discord, I've got a new auction set up in the Discord. One of the cool things we do, just to basically continue the conversation sort of all day long, I do my videos on TikTok during the day. I do my nightly show in the U.S. Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time U.S., 6 p.m. Washington, D.C. time, where I'm located. And then I also have a Discord, which allows us to, you can check it out. It's discord.aravosis.com. Thank you, Hazel, for that. Oh, that's a very nice one, Hazel. Thank you for that. On TikTok, you can find all of my links in my profile. You'll see the Linktree link. My Discord's there and everything. You guys, aravosis.com, bottom of the screen. One of the things I do to try to raise money for Ukraine and to help support my own work, because I do this for free and I am not paid. I'm basically paid by you guys. I do this full time, is I hold auctions on my Discord. And what I've been doing at the auctions, we've been getting cool things from Ukraine, auction them off, and then the proceeds, half the money I channel back into Ukraine, into our humanitarian work there, and the other half is supporting my work. Well, we've got several cool things auctioning right now. I will just show you briefly because I want folks to check them out. The first is these are the last pair of stamps or set of commemorative stamps I have right now. Hopefully I'm going to get more, but right now these are the last ones. These are the Russian warship Go F Yourself commemorative stamps that you may have seen pictures of. This is commemorating the Azov, not the Azov, the Moskva being sunk. Moskva, thank you, Alfie, for the gift there, and Mr. Lopez. The Moskva is the Russian flagship that the Ukrainians sank months ago. And I mean, brilliantly, this was like the top Russian ship of their fleet in the area, sunk them. So the Ukrainians, a Ukrainian artist did a painting, and the Ukrainians, of course, turned it into a stamp, and it shows a soldier on the beach, finger in the air, middle finger, I'm not going to show you, to the ship. And one stamp, you see the ship, and the stamp next to it, there's no ship. I'll show you really, if you can see. It's really cool. I mean, I've got it in the bag to protect it so I don't get any oil on it. But they're very cool, perfect condition, make a nice set. The second the second auction item, just to show you, and then we're getting back to Ukraine. These wonderful bracelets. I've got a few of these left, not that many. Thank you, Bonnie, for the gift there. The Ukrainian government made these and was selling them. We bought several. I think I've got three left, maybe. I've got to check. These are commemorating the Azov Battalion, which are the Ukrainian troops, the 2,000 troops. Thank you, Hazel, for that. That fought the 14,000 Russian troops in Mariupol. Remember, they were holed up in the steel factory. The Ukrainian government took the steel, the last batch of steel they were able to get from that factory before the Russians took over the whole town, and they made bracelets out of it. So it's a woven bracelet with the steel in the middle. They've got I think you can just see there, the Ukrainian trident stamp on there. It says from Azovstal. You guys can see more easily the trident. And then a sort of a whole description on the back in Ukrainian, which, you all can read later. But we're auctioning these off. And then the final thing, I have two boxes left of dun, 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 Russian fighter jet shot down over Ukraine. This one is my absolute favorite. Vlad was able to get it for us. He knows a woman who runs a charity that they were able to get their hands on parts of the plane, and they've been basically giving these commemorative boxes away as gifts to anybody who pays $200 or more as a donation. So we donated $200, actually $800. We bought 4 of the boxes. It was risky, but I love this kind of stuff and hoped you guys would, and you guys have. What's neat is, the box is Orc Busters, it says on it. The Ukrainians call the Russians orcs. Inside is a little pamphlet that shows where the plane was shot down. We know the plane, we know the whole thing. And it's 2 pieces of titanium Russian fighter jet. It's an Su-30M, Su-30. I've got to look at the description. I think it was Su-30SM, I believe it's called, fighter jet. And they've got a picture of the jet. Before, the picture after it was shot down. I did some research. I know the pilot. I know where it was found. The pilot was captured. His life story. Anyway. We've got a lot of information. Very cool. You can find all of these for auction. I'm making the great necklace. I know it's a little sharp though. Poppy wants to make a necklace. You'd have to be careful though, because it's sharp. But again, for somebody like me, this is an awesome gift. Don't buy it for me, but it's an awesome gift. All right. You can find all of that on our Discord, discord.aravosis.com. Back to the show. Switzerland today did something obnoxious. They, hang on a second. Switzerland rejected Spain's request to re-export anti-aircraft guns to Ukraine. Spain had made the request in January to allow 2 35mm anti-aircraft guns, which were made in Switzerland, that they be sent to Ukraine. Switzerland had previously vetoed requests from Denmark and Germany, who wanted to send Swiss-made armored vehicles and ammunition. Thank you, Karen, for that. basically the way it works is whenever a country makes weapons and then sells them to somebody else, sorry, my allergies are going off here, makes weapons and sells them to somebody else, the country that makes the weapons gets to determine what you do with them next. So in other words, you can take them and use them, but if you want to give them away or sell them to another country, you've got to get my permission first, me, the country who sold them to you in the first place. So Switzerland so far has been saying, no, 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 we're not going to do it. There's been talk about Switzerland changing its policies overall about this, but so far they're not, and they did it again. So they're turning down Spain, who wanted to help Ukraine. Some better news, America's former top general in Europe, Ben Hodges, who has been very rah-rah on the Ukraine war. What I mean by that is Hodges has been quite the optimist about how Ukraine is doing. He says that if Ukraine gets the same level of help it's getting right now, in other words, if NATO doesn't give Ukraine fighter jets, but gives it what it's getting now, he thinks Ukraine can win, but it will take them 5 years. Now, mind you, that's obviously a problem for all of us. Thank you, blah, blah, because we are very concerned about whether NATO or whether our countries, whether in America's case, right? I mean, the Republican Party is starting to have issues. Still, 60% of the Republicans are good, 40% of the Republicans not good on this stuff. That could start to cause problems. So we don't really want the war to go 5 years if we can help it. Having said that, what Hodges said is, if we give Ukraine fighter jets, and he says we should give them the fighter jets, all the excuses about training and all this stuff are BS from his perspective. If we give them the fighter jets, he thinks Ukraine can win the war in 1 year, which I thought was very interesting and very positive. Now, my suspicion is we will probably eventually maybe do that, and but it's going to take too long, and by the time we do the jets, it's going to be another 6 to 9 months, and then it's going to take another 6 months of training, and you get it. Sorry, somebody was asking where the auctions are. Basically, when you go to the Discord, because Discord has a lot of features to make sure trolls don't go there, you've got to go to the Discord, look for the README, click the README, read the welcome. At the bottom of the welcome, there's a link you're supposed to click that says, I accept the terms, and then it opens up the entire Discord, and then look down and you'll see the VIP section, which is for paying Discord members. You can pay via my Patreon. You'll see the public auction section, which is, I've got other stuff being auctioned there for anybody. You don't have to be a paying member. You'll see it there. What else we got here? Oh, this was interesting too. So one of the world's top energy traders, Pierre Andurand, was interviewed by the Financial Times. Basically, I'll call the Financial Times the Wall Street Journal of London, basically. Thank you, Karen, for the gift there, and Ellen. Very respected financial publication, the Financial Times. Interviewed by them, and he says that he believes that Putin has lost the energy war with Europe, basically with all the energy sanctions. Listen to this. I'm not sure, Phoenix. We'll have to. I don't know if Syndicate's on tonight because he can generally help. One of my friends, who's our big tech guy who helps with all this stuff, who really set it all up, but I don't know if he's on our YouTube right now. If he is, see if maybe you can help. Somebody on TikTok's having a problem. They can't get the verification to work. It's saying verification failed. You may want to try it on your computer and or your phone. I'm also told that you should download the app, I think is what somebody had told me once. I think. Sorry about that. I can't help you anymore with it right now. I apologize. So this trader, this top energy trader in the world, does an interview with the Financial Times and says that he thinks Putin screwed up the energy thing completely. Because remember, we thought Putin really had us by the, right, in terms of energy. His points: you had very high natural gas and power prices in Europe, but and they were very bad. They caused inflation worldwide, right? A lot of concerns. Our prices went through the roof, a lot of anger. Now, a lot of that has come back to a much more reasonable level, still high, but reasonable at this point. He says if gas prices stay where they are, there is much less worry about inflation, much less worry about interest rates rising, and no more of a fear of an energy crisis. Now that these are quotes from him. Now that Europe is getting used to living without Russian gas, why would they ever go back? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. He's making a good point. If the prices start to settle and become more normal and Europe gets used to the new normal, if you're Europe, you're European government, you're not going back to Russia again. If you can help it, you're not going back to Russia now. I mean, basically, it's almost like the nuclear weapons. Putin's big threat is using nuclear weapons. His big Thank you for Jesse for the hydro. In other words, excuse me, his big tactic is to use the threat, not the weapon itself. Once you use the weapon, thank you, La La Land, for that. Once you use the weapon, it's done. So Putin uses a nuke and it's over, right? I mean, then World War III and it's over. Threatening nukes can get Putin a lot. It can scare all of us to stop giving Ukraine weapons, et cetera, right? The same thing with the energy. Threatening an embargo of Europe scared the hell out of the Europeans. But once you embargoed them, Europe then had to get off Russian oil and gas. They had to find alternative means. They're investing more, we assume, in alternatives, possibly even nuclear. And Europe now, at least so far, has gotten under a new normal of living without Russian energy, at least in large part. Why would you go back, right? Thank you, Fred, for that. He says Putin made a massive miscalculation over who had the leverage, meaning Putin thought he had the leverage, but in the end, it was really the Europeans and also the Chinese. Listen to this. In the same way he miscalculated how Ukraine would fight back and the West would be united, Russia has lost its biggest customer forever, and it will take at least a decade to bring enough pipeline to redirect those gas sales to Asia. Once Russia can only sell gas to China, Beijing will be in a position to decide the price. So think about that. His point is, when you've got a lot of different customers, right, those customers can't really set the price because you've got a lot of customers. If any customer says, I'm not going to pay that, you say, good, take a walk, right? When you only have one customer, that customer controls you. Like, you may control that customer, but that customer also controls you because that customer can walk and say, okay, we're going. Anyway, we'll see. Very interesting. I have a Patreon set up as well, by the way. Do check out my Patreon. It's another way to support my work. As I said, I do this full time. I do it for free. So I rely on your guys' financial support. So thank you for that. My Patreon is patreon.com/Aravosis. Again, you can find the link, you guys, at aravosis.com. You guys can find it on TikTok in my profile. Just click the link tree. It's there. TikTok. So TikTok, interesting doing news on TikTok, where I'm on my iPad on TikTok. TikTok news about TikTok on TikTok. Thank you, Marcy. TikTok uncovered a Russian disinformation campaign spreading war propaganda about Ukraine to more than 100,000 European users over the past summer. The company said today. The network operated in Russia, but targeted mostly people in Germany, Italy, and the UK. Thank you, Marcy, for the garland. About 1,700 accounts belonging to the network were able to spread anti-Ukrainian messages by masquerading as accounts created by local users in those countries. It is this. I love this part. Thank you, Happy Beach family. I don't think I've seen that one before. That's very cool. The fireworks. Thank you for that. The final was, it is unclear whether the network was linked to the Russian government. Right. Sure. We know it was. I mean, please. Last story is, and this is actually just a little more detail on somebody had mentioned last night about Poland shutting down some of its borders with Belarus. Just to show you on the map really quick. You got Ukraine, okay? All of this is Russia, and Russia goes much beyond this because Russia is a huge country, like 11 time zones, okay? Over here is Belarus, dictatorship, big friend of Russia. And then here is Poland, okay? So to the west of Ukraine is Poland, all on the border. This border right here is all Belarus. The Poles and Belarus border each other. Poland, member of NATO, Belarus, dictator friend of Putin, who's helping him with the war, okay? Listen to this. Yesterday, this was, I think, via Sky News. Yes, via Sky News. Yesterday, Poland, citing security concerns, said it would close a key border crossing into Belarus, driving already hostile relations between the two countries to a new low. And the Polish prime minister said today that they may close even more crossings. After the closure comes into force, only 2 of 6 major land crossing points along the two countries' 250-mile border will be open. Interesting. Not sure what it means. Not sure where we go from here. Okay, I have to. I'm laughing. I'm laughing because my nephew. I think my nephew always forget. I mean, my nephew's like an adult, but he always forgets that I do the show at this hour. So I always get text messages that pop up on my screen from my nephew. Remember what I said at the beginning of the show? My nephew says to me, "Did we just shoot down a UFO?" The statement for the Pentagon is super weird. That's what I was saying. You can check out my tweet 4 hours ago. I said, why isn't anybody asking the Pentagon, did we just kill ET? That's all I'm saying. All right. That is the news for tonight. We'll switch over to the Q&A section of the show. The way that works, you guys on TickTock can submit questions via the Q&A link that you will find in my profile on TickTock. The rest of you obviously can use the chat buttons at the bottom, the comment buttons at the bottom of your screen. Please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and the super chats and the super stickers if you can afford them on YouTube. I appreciate the support. Thank you for that, inspired woman. The other thing is we are still doing a fundraiser to raise camouflage nets for the Ukrainians. Thank you for the Hydra slime there, Carson. This is not a fundraiser for me. All of this money goes to the Ukrainian government or Ukrainian military, really. And what actually doesn't even go to the Ukrainian military. It goes to a nonprofit, a charity we're working with in Ukraine. And we are sending the money to buy the necessary parts to make camouflage nets, basically string and stuff for the net itself, and then the fabric that weaves in there. I've got a picture still. I'll show you really quick. They are taking volunteers from cities, basically. A lot of these people really, which is really sad actually, have no work because a lot of these towns, they've just lost their economy entirely. And either people sit home and get drunk, which is really bad, and do nothing because literally, this is what I was told. There's nothing to do for these poor people. So a lot of them are volunteering. And this is also, frankly, getting them out of the house and giving them something to do where they feel like their life actually matters now that a lot of them have lost their jobs. So what they're doing is we are raising money to, this is one of the centers we're raising the money for. They are literally building camouflage nets. Camouflage nets are nets that you notice how it looks like. I'll show you guys in a second. Notice how it looks like snow sticking there, right? These nets will be laid on top of military equipment. They could be on top of tanks. They could be on top of HIMARS. They could be on top of military headquarters. Who knows? And if you're looking from up above, from a satellite or even from a drone, it'll blend in with the surrounding snowy area and nobody will know where it is. So the Russians can't hit it. They can't attack. Really helpful if you can do it. Oh, you saw something on CBS Morning Show. That's really cool. Well, we're working with one of the charities in Ukraine that we've been working with from the beginning of the war. We've already raised from the beginning of the war for other things, $80,000 to go into lots of other charity work in Ukraine. We want to keep raising for this as well. Somebody just mentioned, and I forgot to tell you, one of the interesting things to note is how the women are dressed. They're indoors and they are fully dressed in full winter clothing with hats and scarves because there's no heat, because the Russians have attacked them. They've got just enough light for electricity, but they don't. I'm guessing the gas is probably off. But it's something I sort of missed the first time I noticed when I was looking at it. They're working in there, like I said, with no heat at all. And trying to basically, doing macrame and sewing with their hands. Any case, if you can help, I'd appreciate it. The PayPal address to send is to my friend Vlad Naprokovsky. You will find it in my TikTok, again, in my profile. Look at the Linktree link, click it, and the very first thing that comes up will tell you Vlad's PayPal address. You simply open your PayPal and send it to Vlad. He's my contact in Ukraine. Been working with this guy for, known him. My nephew's known the guy for years. He works with my nephew actually at a big company. But Vlad is Ukrainian in Ukraine, so he's been volunteering doing all this work. The rest of you, same thing. Go to erevosis.com. I'll put up Vlad's contact info for you guys directly. For the rest of you, there you go. But if you can help, I'd appreciate it. $20 will get one net. $20 gets enough material for one net. Thank you, Carson, for the gift. We hope to make 150 nets. That's $3,000. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. What else to tell you? That's it. 100% of the money will go for the nets. That's why I'm having you send it to Vlad in Ukraine. I don't want to touch the money. Like, I don't want to have to deal with taxes and everything else because I'm not getting anything from this. You got Vlad's info. If you can help, I'd appreciate it, guys. We only raised about $600 so far for it. Thank you, Chaz, for the money gun. I'd appreciate if we could raise. We were hoping to raise 3,000. If we could even raise 1,000, I'd appreciate it because at least that would get them. What did we say? $20. That would get them 50 nets, which is something at least. But I'd hope we could maybe raise a little bit if you guys can help. So thank you. All right. Questions. So let me go to the questions. You guys on TikTok, submit them via the Q&A link in my profile. The rest of you got the comment box. Let me water up and turn on the questions. Boom. All right. And then remember, tomorrow morning, TikTok subscribers, the paid subscribers on TikTok, we're doing our coffee talk tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Here we go. I don't think so. Do you think there is? This is a good question, though. From Kristen James, do you think there is any benefit to NATO not sending the better weapons right now and prolonging the war? The only way this is a good thing is if you think, and clearly Putin does, you can grab Vlad's info. Sorry, on TikTok again. Go to my just type in my aravosis.com, my last name, which is the name you see on my Twitter, my TikTok account, aravosis.com. That will pull up all of the links, and the very top link, it tells you about Vlad's thing. Same thing if you just go to my profile on TikTok, and in my profile there's a Linktree link. Click it, and it'll pull up the. But aravosis.com will do it. You'll get Vlad's info right there. NATO prolonging the war. The only reason prolonging the war is a good idea, thank you, Anthony, for the super sticker, is if you believe, thank you, Diego, is if you believe that we run the risk of nuclear war if we scare Putin and Ukraine does too well. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. Who am I? That's an easy question to answer. Go to the link in my profile on TikTok, click it, and it links to my LinkedIn account that has all of my work experience for the last 34 years. Actually, more than 34 years. So go check it out. You'll find out more than enough about me. I do not believe that Putin's about to have a nuclear war with us. But if you believe that, then sure, it's been good that NATO went slowly gave Ukraine better weapons, right? Only slowly, because that way the frog was boiling in the pot slowly, to use the frog analogy, turn it on its head, meaning because we slowly gave Ukraine better weapons, Russia never fully noticed. And because Russia never fully noticed, they never got really mad. But if we'd given Ukraine everything at once, Russia would have freaked out and used their nuclear weapons. I don't think that's true. But if you believe that, then sure, okay, it helped. Otherwise, what this did is it dragged out the war. Exactly what you said. A lot of Ukrainians have been killed. A lot of Ukrainian soldiers have been killed. Frankly, a lot of Russian soldiers have been killed who didn't have to die. I mean, I'm no fan of the Russians right now, but it'd be nice if everybody didn't die, fair enough. We have prolonged this war by dragging out this drip, drip, drip of someday better weapons, because not to mention too, now we're sending tanks, except we're not sending tanks. Now we're training the Ukrainians on the tanks, and now we're trying to find the tanks to send to Ukraine, and the American tanks might not even arrive till next year, and the German tanks, they'll arrive this year. 30 of them, in fact, will arrive by April, but the rest of the 80, they may not come until Christmas or next year. I mean, it's been one big game that we've ended up playing. Not even game. I'm trying to think of, I was thinking of the word in Greek. One big BS thing, basically, but doing it this way. So no, I think it's caused a lot of harm, and I think it's going to cause even more harm. And frankly, it let the Russians keep fighting. It let the Russians keep thinking that maybe they could win this. And I think the Ukrainians could have ended it soon and quickly had we given them. And frankly, we're still not giving them all the weapons they need. They need the fighter jets, but they really need the long-range fighters of the long-range missiles as well that we're still refusing to give them. So, Canadian tanks are en route, and that's good. That's good, Anyway, that's not how you write. I don't even know what you're saying. Coxine? Sorry, you're a good friend, mind you. You're spelled wrong, of a coxine dictator. Coccine. Now, I know what he was trying to write, but being a Russian troll, he couldn't quite figure out the words. A coxine dictator. I don't even know, I know the word he was trying to come up with, but that doesn't even make sense. Ugh. Russia, you're not sending us your best. That's all I have to say. You're not sending us your best. All right, more questions here, more questions. Sorry, let me look at, thank you, Xantham, for that. Let me see here. Just looking if there were more. Thank you, Hazel, for the bumper cars. Oh, I see. A lot of folks are. I did see this. Yeah, Rachel mentioned that Russia is apparently dumping water from the Kakhovka hydroelectric dam, and a national public radio, which is public radio in America. It's not quite the BBC, though. I mean, it's something different. But nonetheless, I saw some pictures they had, actually, but they did a big segment on it or whatever. Oh, hang on. Yeah, Rachel. Yeah. So the Russian nuclear plant, Zaporizhzhia, that we've all been worried about, is in the region of Zaporizhia, but not the town of Zaporizhia. The town of Zaporizhia is up here. It's still free. The region of Zaporizhia, a lot of it is controlled by Russia. The nuclear plant, I seem to remember the nuclear plant is, you can maybe you can see how the Dnipro River that cuts Ukraine in half, how the river kind of comes down and then goes up. Right where it goes up on the south side of the river is the nuclear plant. So that's the area. Remember, south of the river is controlled by Russia. Okay, that is where the nuclear plant is. Russia controls all the land here, and what the concerns have been that Russia. First, there was the concern was that Russia's been playing games with the dams, with the dam in this area here, and screwing with the water, and they were doing it to basically flood the area down here, to have too much water go through. Okay, when too much water goes through, the area down here floods. There are Ukrainian troops now north of the river because the Ukrainian troops took over the north of the river, so they're trying to flood them out. But the other thing that happens, I'm guessing, looking at the map here, you see how the way the river swells here and becomes really large, and up here it swells and becomes large, and then here it's skinny again? It's large up here and here because of the dam. Well, what does that do? It creates a huge lake, a reservoir. That reservoir is used to cool the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. We had been talking months ago about this, about the concern that Russia was screwing with the river and with the dams. They were increasing the flow of water, which meant water downstream would flood and flood the Ukrainians. But upstream, where there was a reservoir, if you get rid of the dam, or at least open it up a lot, the reservoir is no longer reserving water. The water is going through. If you're not reserving water, there's no longer a pool, right? Because this is how dams work. Think of a picture of a dam. A river, there's the big, huge dam, and behind the dam, the water's really high, and it's a huge lake because it's stopped before the dam, and the dam only lets a little bit through. If you let all the water through, it's like pulling the plug on a toilet. Or on a toilet, pulling a plug on a bathtub. The water goes down and the water level goes down. So this lake will lose a lot of its height, right? Because the water's going through. Now, it's still a river, so it's not going to go dry. But instead of being this high, it's this high. Well, what if you're the nuclear plant and your pipe's bringing water in, right? The water's this high. Your nuclear pipe is here taking water into the plant. The water level drops down here. You now have no water for your nuclear plant. That is the concern about what's going on right now, that Russia may yet again be creating a nuclear disaster at this plant. And frankly, from the beginning, we've known this. I mean, Russia from the beginning has been trying to use Ukrainian nuclear plants as a kind of dirty bomb, right? Thank you, Hazel, for that. Meaning, you can't really use the plants as a nuclear weapon, but you can use the plants to freak people out. Meaning, if you basically, you know how you've heard, and it's true, that nuclear plants are built so that a 747 jet, right, could crash into them and they wouldn't blow up, right? They were protected against terrorism, whatever. And that's true. What they're not protected about is something more simple, which is their coolant system going out. In Japan, remember was it Fukushima, I think it's called, the plant a couple of years ago with the tsunami. The tsunami came and wiped out the electricity and the power. So the power system that was keeping the coolant system going died, and the plant melted down. I mean, other problems, but basically that's what happened. This is a similar concern with this plant, is that if they kill the coolant system, either by bombing, right? The concern has been all the Russian bombing happening near the plants, that it wouldn't blow up the nuclear plant, but that it would blow up the electrical facilities that are supporting the nuclear plant, and then the plant would lose its cooling power. Well, in this case, same concept. The Russians are screwing with the lake, with the lake, in essence, the reservoir that is being used to cool the nuclear plant, and that would cause a nuclear meltdown. Nuclear meltdown, not to get all complicated, but I mean, and I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I know this in general. Thank you, Loyalty, for the hat. Basically, if you get rid of the coolant, you got these nuclear rods, they're radioactive. You know, they've got the plutonium or whatever it is, uranium, whatever's in a nuclear plant, and the water helps to keep them at a certain temperature, right? So you can use them as fuel, but not overheat. If you get rid of the water that's the coolant, these things are so hot because they're radioactive, they just get hotter and hotter and hotter, and they get so hot they explode and they melt. And then these things go into the earth. They can not just when the explosion happens, Chernobyl, by the way, this is what happened. Thank you, Bonnie, for the football helmet. And who was the paw? Oh, Bonnie as well for the paw. Thank you. But the nuclear fuel explodes in the air and then also sinks into the ground. And if it gets into the groundwater, it then is super hot, right? Nuclear fuel in the groundwater and throws off nuclear steam, which is, I mean, insane. You've got radioactive steam flying around. You get the point. It is incredibly dangerous. And I think the Russians are doing this on purpose. They're trying to basically, these are acts of terrorism the Russians are trying. I mean, I really don't know. And by the way, answering somebody's question earlier who said, is there any benefit to dragging this out? This is what happens when you drag the war out. You're making it more likely for Russia to pull off one of these terrorist acts in essence. Probably not. Interesting question, though. Thank you, Ali, for that. NB is asking, would China really use the distraction of Ukraine to take a portion of Russia's far eastern coast that has lots of natural resources? Apparently, they've moved troops near the border near Yakutsk. I think that's pretty funny. I mean, I think it's funny because it's a matter of just screwing with the Russians. I don't know. I mean, I was going to say, I doubt China would do it, but here's the thing. What this war has done for Russia that has been very dangerous for Russia is a couple things. Sip of water. One, it's shown the world that Russia isn't as powerful as we thought they were, right? Yeah, they've got nuclear weapons, but their military kind of sucks. I mean, it's big enough and they've got enough artillery and missiles that they can, right? They're causing a lot of damage in Ukraine, but let's face it, Russia should have been able to squash Ukraine like a gnat, and Russia still is at best tied with Ukraine at this point, right after a year. So we see that the Russian military, and as we just saw, I was talking earlier today about the Volodar, right? The disaster the Russians had in this city in southern Ukraine, where the Russian troops fled. They just fled and left dozens of military vehicles, including tanks, for the Ukrainians to take. Thank you, Nathan. And Arifa, good to see you again. So that's the first problem for the Russians is they have exposed their own military as not being as good as people thought. Second problem for the Russians, and I always sort of like to do it this way. Let's say we thought Russia's military was here. Okay, top of my head. Now we know they're only this good. We thought they were this good. They were only this good. Well, now after a year of fighting, today the U.S. government just said Russia has already lost half of its tanks, like half of its main tanks that it uses, battle tanks. They're gone. So Russia's lost a lot of, they've lost heading towards 200,000 troops killed or injured. Probably, this is very rough, probably 60,000 killed, 140,000 injured might be the breakdown. That's a hell of a lot. That, along with all the weapons they've lost and the sanctions, means Russia, we thought Russia was here. Russia was really here. Now, because of the war dead and all the troops and all the weapons they've lost, now they're here. Well, if you're China, initially, sure, every country thinks, I've got a neighbor. What happens if we go to war, right? We could go to war because they attack me. We could go to war because I attack them. Do we have territorial disputes? Are there minerals I want? In Japan's case, are there islands Russia stole from me in World War II that I want back? Initially, China and other countries would say, when I do a cost-benefit analysis, a risk analysis of the benefit and the risk of attacking Russia, I've got to consider Russia's this good. Well, now guess what? Russia's only this good, because it's a year of war, and we know the Russian military isn't as good as we thought they are. If you're China, maybe China was this good, and China said, yeah, but Russia's this good. I'm not going to attack. Now we know Russia's only this good. China's still this good. Now, from China's perspective, these are, obviously, I'm just using an example. From China's perspective, this is a whole other ballgame now, because Russia's not nearly as powerful. Russia still has nuclear weapons, which means China still might not do it, because the Russians might nuke the Chinese. But it's very interesting. If you're China and you want to screw with Russia, now's the time. And frankly, if you're any country that wants to screw with Russia, now may be the time to do it. Well, that's the thing. China has the numbers. China has the nukes. Anyway, who knows? I'm not convinced China would want to upset the apple cart that much right now, but who knows? It'd be funny. I mean, as somebody who's rooting for Ukraine, it'd be funny to see the Russians sort of have to fight another front in the war against China now. Except granted, we don't want to, you know, having said that, World War III would not be funny. So I don't know that I want the entire world engulfed in war, but you get my point. What else we got here? Yeah, I don't know if he cares. Sorry, Debbie's mentioning the nuclear threat from the Russians. NATO needs to remind Putin when he threatens nukes that his family and kids won't survive either. And if Russia is so great, then why does Putin's family live throughout Europe living a great life? Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you know, I think from NATO's perspective, clearly, they think the best, they basically now, especially initially, they were worried about Putin's threats of nuclear war. Now they think it's a joke. Now they just think it's, you know, he's just blustering. I think clearly from the beginning, they felt that the best way to respond to him was not to respond at all, was basically let the Russians threaten nuclear war as much as they want. But if we start fighting back and saying, well, let me tell you, we've got more nukes than you, or whatever, right? We can destroy you, then that would make the Russians do it back. And maybe the Russians would feel they'd have to prove something. That's my only guess. So that basically, you know, what's the harm? Now, the harm, I will say, there is some harm in letting the Russians just spout off like this because they scare people. The Russians have spent a year trying to scare people. They've got Fox News. Now, mind you, I think Tucker Carlson at Fox News is bought off in some way. He knows better, I think. But they've got Tucker Carlson. They've got Glenn Greenwald. They've now got Elon Musk. Elon Musk, they probably got by threatening to blow up his satellites. But they've got all of these guys, and the nuclear stuff, if not convincing all of the Putin, I don't even know what to call them, Putin's boyfriends, maybe the nuclear threats don't convince them, but it gives them fuel. It gives them ammunition. So Musk can sit there like he does on Twitter and go, oh my God, we're all going to have a nuclear war over Ukraine. Is it worth it? And Glenn Greenwald can do the same thing, even though Glenn knows better. And Tucker Carlson certainly knows better, but Tucker was on somebody's payroll. Who knows whose? I mean, we know he's on Fox's payroll, but you know what I mean? Tucker's got some personal interest, a metaphorical payroll in all of this. It gives him ammunition to tell his audience. And mind you, he knows his audience doesn't know what's going on. So Tucker Carlson, who's a big Fox News person, actually the biggest Fox News personality, is just playing with his audience. So he can say, look at this nuclear threat from Vladimir Putin. And the Fox News audience goes, oh my God, because they trust Tucker. Tucker's lying, but they trust Tucker, you know? Interesting update from Brave Cobra on the from Twitch on the ET shot down by the US today. The alien object that was shot down appears to have no surveillance equipment, according to reports on CNN. Huh. Interesting. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was nothing, but it's a nice oh yeah, Tucker. I know Tucker admitting he lies on TV. That was insane. It's still a nice message the U.S. is sending China, because clearly the U.S. is sending China a message that it could have been you. We don't know if it was you, and we were still willing to shoot it down, right? So if you're the Chinese, you're looking at this and going, oy. So I think to some degree too, it might have been political that Biden shot it down. Thank you, biofuel guy. But it was also Biden intentionally trying to send the Chinese or anybody else a message and go, next time we're shooting all this crap down. So interesting. Will Russia retaliate against NATO or the US? They've already tried. I mean, there's nothing else. BitCarbon's asking on TikTok. I mean, what else can they do? They've tried for a year, right? They cut off oil and they cut off a lot. Well, they cut off a lot of natural gas. Some of the oil. Europe also cut them off of oil. They've done what they can to, we can't go for vacation anymore in Russia, which most Americans never really did. Europeans didn't either. It's actually Russians who come to us and come to Europe. We don't go there, not for vacation. Oops, what was I saying? On the beep, 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 beep. I'm doing it again. See, I'm having my little brain fart again. We were saying about Russia and Putin and retaliating. He's already retaliated all he can. What else can he do? Seriously, that's the thing. There's nothing else he can do. I mean, what, going to kill Ukrainians? Already doing that. I mean, this is why at this point we should just give Ukraine the weapons it needs. Moldova, the thing is, Russia's going to take Moldova because it's in Russia's interest to take Moldova. They're not going to do it because they're mad at us, right? He's not stupid. Tucker is Tucker Carlson, who's the top Fox News personality, who is very, I am pissed that I'm not sanctioned. I am. But he's super pro Putin. He's a big fan of Viktor Orban in Hungary, the leader of Hungary, prime minister. Super anti-Ukraine, but basically repeats all of the Russian talking points on Ukraine. A lot of us, he is, I mean, so pro-Putin and so pro-Russia, has done numerous broadcasts saying like, what's the problem? Why? I love Putin. Why don't you love Putin? Why? It's been very, he said things like, if I had to choose between Putin and Democrats, I'd choose Putin. I mean, really just sick, un-American stuff, I mean, you don't say that. You don't say that about Democrats or Republicans. You don't choose a foreign enemy over your own people, even if you disagree with them politically. But that's who Tucker Carlson. No, it's really, but it's creepy because a lot of us are trying to figure out what's motivating him. It's something weird. I'll finish by talking about Nord Stream since somebody was asking about that, and it's worth mentioning again. So Seymour Hersh, this American journalist, but who a lot of people don't really trust anymore, says he interviewed a source. Now, again, a source could still be correct, right? You never know. Who told him that America actually blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, that Biden wanted to blow it up and he got the CIA to do it. And of all things, the Norwegians helped us. It doesn't have any proof, but, the guy gave him a lot of details. I was reading a lot of open source intelligence guys online today that were trying to go through all the public information out there. They can't find anything to back it up. A lot of what Hersh was saying, for example, was we used a military exercise that was announced in advance to hide the fact we were doing this. And a lot of folks were going, well, okay, but don't you think, if you're trying to secretly blow up a Russian pipeline, maybe you don't hold a military exercise on top of the pipeline. That wouldn't actually hide it, right? So that was the first thing. Second of all, we used a Norwegian boat that was in the area anyway. There were no Norwegian boats of the type this guy's talking about in the area at that time. It went on and on. There were all sorts of things that it didn't make sense. The final thing, which there's no evidence yet anyway, but from my perspective is, I am a big fan of Joe Biden. I think Biden has done a great job at rallying the world, right? And even the European. There's been actually, I forgot who it was this week in Europe, and they made a good point, which is once again, America is sort of leading the world. When will Europe lead itself in a European country crisis? And I don't want to knock the Europeans, but my point is, Biden filled a role that I think was very important. You needed somebody to pull it all together, but that had the strength to do it. Boris Johnson did it, but couldn't pull as many strings as Biden could because the U.S. got more money. Basically, we've got more money and influence to buy people, to countries to help us than the UK does, basically, in any case. But my big criticism of Biden has been that I think he's too scared of everything. He's too scared of Putin. And from the beginning, Biden kept talking about World War III. If we give MiG fighter jets, it'll be World War III. And it was just like, and I did my show with you guys, and I kept saying, shut the F up. Like, stop saying it's going to be World War III, because you're sending a message to Vladimir Putin that you're scared of him. And if you're Vladimir Putin hearing this, you're going to say, this is great. I'm going to keep talking about nuclear weapons because the more I talk about them, the more I scare Biden and the more he doesn't want to help Ukraine. To put this in context now, Joe Biden has made clear, take us back again to the question somebody asked at the beginning of the show about, is there any benefit in going so slow with these stupid weapons to Ukraine, right? Slowly, giving them more and more and being afraid every time to give them more. Joe Biden has been so afraid to ramp up the quality of weapons we give Ukraine. But at the same time, 5 months ago, Joe Biden said, hey, let's declare war on Russia by blowing up their pipeline. I mean, what? If he was willing to blow up Russia's pipeline, which was an act of war, literally declaring war on Russia if they find out, then why wouldn't he give Ukraine some stupid missiles that go 100 miles further? right? It doesn't make sense. That's the thing that I don't get. That's the thing. No, and again, I love Biden as far as what he's done with Ukraine, but the guy is a little too scared of Vladimir Putin, and he lets Vladimir Putin kind of dictate what he does to a degree, or at least lets Vladimir Putin hold him back. Wow, Dawn. Sorry, Dawn, wow. Okay, that was insane. Sorry, Dawn just did some ridiculously generous gift on TikTok that I'm almost embarrassed because that probably was way too generous, Dawn. Thank you for that. Wow. We've never seen that before. That was this American Eagle thing. I guess because I'm talking about Biden. She did the Americana. The American Eagle is the eagle is the American's national bird or whatever, and it's also our symbol. Wow, that was totally. Thank you, Dawn. That was ridiculously cool. Thank you for that. Wow. I mean, and very generous too. I don't even know, but I know it was generous. Thank you. Wow. So yeah, I mean, I'll just close with that. I mean, if Biden has been so afraid, and we know he's been so afraid of Putin that he's been willing to help, but he's always waiting too long to help, then why 5 months ago, when he wouldn't even give Ukraine some of these weapons, was he willing to basically declare war on Russia by blowing up their pipeline, knowing that if Russia found out, and they could find out, and mind you, it wasn't like it was just the US government, we were involving the Norwegians. We were literally letting a foreign government involved in the plot. Like, that means somebody can find out because we're not in control of it if we tell the Norwegians. It doesn't ring true. It just doesn't ring true. You know, I mean, I don't have a problem with us blowing it up, so to speak, except that I think it probably is kind of stupid. I don't think you blow up. I mean, I do have a problem with it, I guess, because meaning what I mean is I don't have a problem with the violence of it, but I have a problem because I think it's stupid. You're going to blow up a German pipeline, a European pipeline, and piss all the Europeans off. You know, thank you, Joe, for that. That was very sweet of you. Thank you from Canada. You know, you just don't. It's just you're going to piss all the Europeans off. Why would you blow up their gas? Right? It's a natural gas pipeline to Europe. So if the Europeans find out, we lose all of our allies. I mean, nothing about this makes sense. There you go. All right, let me do a quick summary of the news that we covered tonight, and then I will go over to Discord for a little bit. And then tomorrow morning, we will be on, thank you, Grouchy, for the hat there. We will be on TikTok. I will do a TikTok coffee talk at 10 a.m. Eastern Time US for the TikTok subscribers, who are the folks who pay, it's like $6 a month or something. I get some of it, not enough, but it makes a difference, to basically support my work. Discord is live. Yep, Discord, I'm going to go over in Discord. We do audio because it with so many people, we can't do video. And actually, it's easier. We can do video, but honestly, I like doing just audio on the Discord because we can hang out and it's easier I can turn the lights off and kind of chill. And we go and everybody else types because 50 people talking is insane. And we hang out and we pretty much talk, not politics. Some people have political questions, but it's more, anything, recipes, dogs, pets, Chinese balloons, whatever we want. So go check it out. Jingle, I forgive you. Don't worry. You don't have to. So anyway, check it out. 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow on TikTok for that. And we will go to Discord right afterwards, discord.aravosis.com. All right, quick summary of the news we covered today. Another object shot down over Alaska. We don't know what it was, by the U.S. Air Force. Ukraine's Air Force spokesperson is claiming that 2 Russian missiles launched at Ukraine entered NATO member Romania's airspace. The Romanians are saying it got close but didn't enter their airspace. The Russians made some advances in the last 3 days in Bakhmut and Vuhledar, both in southeastern Ukraine, but more or less eastern Ukraine. But the Russians had basically disaster in Vuhledar. They the new troops got so overrun by the Ukrainians that the Russian troops fled in fear, which is amazing, and left at least 30 mostly intact armored vehicles in one single incident. They fled and left their vehicles and ran. So the Ukrainian army now has 30 new vehicles, including some tanks, I read, although by tanks, they might have meant armored personnel carriers or something, but pretty freaking cool. Switzerland rejected Spain's request to re-export anti-aircraft guns to Ukraine. America's former top general in Europe, Ben Hodges, says that Ukraine could win the war in a year if the West provided them with fighter jets. Thank you, Hazel, for that. One of the world's top energy traders, Pierre Anderand, told the Financial Times today that Putin has basically lost the energy war with Europe. He pretty much cut Europe off, and now Europe has gotten used to not having Russian energy, and Europe is never coming back. The TickTock has uncovered a Russian disinformation operation where fake accounts were promoting disinformation about Ukraine to users in Germany, Italy, and the UK. Interestingly, I'm intrigued about the Italy. I guess maybe they thought with the new government coming in and probably the elections, because the new government they thought wasn't going to be very supportive of Ukraine, and Maloney, I think is her name, ended up being very supportive, which is great. But they probably thought they were going to play games with that. And then finally, yesterday, Poland, citing security concerns, said it would close a key border crossing with Belarus, one of Putin's top allies, probably his top ally in a way. All right, guys, let's call it quits. As I said, I'll go to Discord for a little bit. When you go to the Discord, remember, if you're new there, you got to click the README. You've got to read the README, click the button on the bottom that says I agree to the terms or whatever. And then that will open up the rest of the Discord, where go down, voice channel on the left bottom, and you'll see John's After Party. Click in there and I'll be talking. You've got to turn the mic on at the bottom of apparently the sound is automatically off. So you have to turn the sound on so you can hear me. And we'll be hanging out, and there we go. All right, guys, thank you. Otherwise, we'll be back Monday. I do this Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., Washington, D.C., live. And set a reminder if you would, and join us. Again, every night, Monday to Friday, come hell or high water. And I am there, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. All right, thanks, guys. Thank you, moderators. Thank you for the GIFs. You guys were really, over all of you, YouTube and TikTok, over the top today. Thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate it. It helps me do my work. It really helps me do my work. So, because you help me pay the bills. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right, you all. I will talk to you later. All right. Thank you. See you guys next week at the latest. Bye-bye. And you all.